Alison, I'm not sure if you knew this, but my name is Chris King. I'm a licensed therapist, and today I'm stuck in my head.
Are you serious?
I'm so stuck in my head today.
Can I also be stuck in your head? Can we
Yeah,
all be stuck in your head?
yeah. I
Cool.
want to invite all listeners to like swim around in my brain matter. Let's go. Let's do this. Come on. Boom. How? Um,
Yeah.
so it's March and it's springtime, and today's going to be like 85 degrees.
Praise be.
I know, right? And so I'm a little curious what's stuck in your head.
Well, I'm on spring break. I'm recording from vacation. Vacation in Bella Vista, Arkansas.
Yep.
And I love it when the weather I'm a winter hater. No offense to the winter lovers out there. And like there are aspects of winter that I'm like, yeah, but like for the most part I'm like get out of here. And
Right.
spring and summer like for me all the time. So I'm like ready. I'm about ready to get into my like best times. We're over here visiting my folks and they got puppies.
Oh, that's fun.
Like but they're the smallest puppies I've ever seen. Two of them, sisters, little sisters, little pocket beagle puppies. And we have a not at all small German Shepherd, not puppy.
Right. Right.
And I was like, how's this gonna go?
Yeah, right.
This is gonna be awesome, or this is gonna be so unawesome. And it's been kind of adorable. So that was actually, I was like really stressed out about it because I didn't want my dog to ruin it for everybody. But
Right.
my dog hasn't ruined anything. We didn't ruin anything yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. But we just got here yesterday. Still
Hey,
early. We could still eat one of these puppies by this point
right.
tomorrow.
Right. That could happen. I
But yeah,
think
no, I'm just thinking about family and
yeah,
spring, puppies versus dogs. That's what I'm thinking about.
that's awesome.
And March
Um,
Madness
I know March Madness start is today, so
with
that,
my
that
bracket.
you got your bracket. We got family bracket going. Who do you have winning? Hogs?
Well, in my heart, yes.
Uh-huh.
Ryan has like the hogs going all the way. I was like, well, you're a real fan and I'm not.
Right.
And I have absolutely no like reason why, but I have Michigan winning.
That's probably not a terrible choice. I don't know much about college basketball anymore. I used to,
Yeah,
but that is over.
those days are gone.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. But I just kind of went with a lot of favorites with a few sprinkled upsets. But I
Yeah.
like I like the Houston Cougars. I want Kelvin Sampson, who used to be the coach at OU, want him
Yep.
to get one. He went to the final last year
Yep.
and did not win. And so I'm going with Houston, the Cougs.
Cougar Town.
Yep. That's what I'm doing. Okay, well that sounds good. Like that sounds like a good week for you. You need that, right?
I need it. I want it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. Stuck in my head.
Yeah. What is it?
Few
Besides
things.
Maggie.
Well, it was Maggie's birthday. And then she ushers in our birthday season. So her birthday is March 20th. Drew's is April 1st, which is
Oh, oops.
coming right up.
Yeah. April
And then
Fools.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then Eli's Cinco de Mayo. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
yeah. And
Very cool.
Maggie's birthday is the first day of spring. So we have all three of our kids have kind of like not federal holidays, but special days attached
The
to their
first year special. Yeah.
yeah, which is cool. So yeah, thinking a lot about Maggie. I have had angry clients at work, so
Oh,
that's been stuck in my head.
angry
Um,
at you?
no,
Angry.
no, like we had some billing funk and
Um,
the system of insurance and working out like payments for people with insurance. Like in what world? I just think it's crazy. It's taking me so long to get used to this as a real thing. Like in what world, when someone wants to know what it's going to cost, besides used cars, can you only give them an estimate? And it's in the insurance world.
like,
Yeah,
man.
it is. It's terrible because like so then we will verify people's insurance and it will say they have a X copay
Right.
and but everyone says, well, but this isn't the most accurate. Like if you want the most accurate, you can't get to it unless you sit on the phone for an hour or you ask the client to do themselves. And so we have to basically tell them, and our industry does this, they have to say, here is a good faith estimate. This is the best guess we have. And whenever your insurance comes back, then we'll really know. And more times than not, it's right. So that's
Yeah.
great. But sometimes
But
it's
when it's
not.
wrong,
Sometimes
yeah.
it's not right at all. And so we'll be like, oh, you're going to owe nothing. And then it comes back and they owe $130 a session, but they're already like 3 sessions deep. So
Right.
now they have a bill for like $380 or something. It
Wow.
is, it is the lose, lose, lose.
Yeah. It's
And
a
I have pulled
fun
out my
ball.
hair, like trying to find ways to be better about it. And we're going to continue to do that, like at our business. But like, um, this person was unhappy and they should have been.
Yeah.
So that stuck in my head, like I got to figure out how to make this better. So
And that's like, is that hard for you?
yeah, yeah, it's
That
hard.
you'll hang on to that for a little bit.
Yeah, when I was younger, I would hang on to their upsetness. And
Right.
I'm getting a little bit better at being like, yes, you have that right. But I don't, if I felt drawn in emotionally to every time something like that happened in a small way, like it'd be very difficult for me to function. So I've had to figure that out on my own, how to not like let those things, like what feels like me personally, or us letting
Yeah.
someone down, which could happen, or causing pain, um, because of either like I don't know, like competency or something like that. We messed up.
Yeah.
Like I hate it. But there was a time whenever, and I realize now that it was very connected to like my deeper things. And so I've literally the last couple of years been working on trying to help those things not be as connected, which actually it's a good segue to the thing. I'll get to it later, but like about the way things are.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, okay. And then the only other thing I had that I put down was because like we deal with people that are really struggling or that maybe might get unhappy. Um, like all of the therapists on our team, like they enter into those collaborations with clients like out of a good heart. Like they are coming to the table and the client is vulnerable and our people literally are vulnerable too because if they're like they do their song and dance and
Yeah.
it sometimes it doesn't work or people aren't happy with it and sometimes people like get mad because we're supposed to fix a thing and then you're
Right.
like out there laying it out like and you're like taking on that burden and so I just big shout out to all the therapists out there, literally all the helpers that make themselves vulnerable and enter into the helping profession out of a good heart,
Yeah.
like a real desire and competency. Like they're professionals, right? But sometimes it doesn't always work. And sometimes you get roasted for it. And it's just not, it sucks. Not good. And
Yeah.
then you're like, and back to work tomorrow.
And I do this all again tomorrow or in
Yeah,
an
right.
hour. I go do this again in another hour.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, right, right. In 10 minutes, I'm gonna, yeah, do think, and it's that way for you guys that work in ministry as well. So, just big shout out to people that enter into the vocational space because they want to help. I just want to say thank you to all of those people personally.
Helping's hard,
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yep, yep, yep. Okay.
but necessary.
Yeah, it's real. Segment two, the orientation cycle. It's this idea of radically accepting where you are, which is
Yeah.
a, which is part of our conversation today. I accept where I am. So then therefore, like I understand that there's going to be times that I get lost. And when I'm lost, I need to connect to places to go, people to be with, things to do, beliefs
Mm.
that can bring me back to center, to home, like can help me get found. And when that happens, I come to a place that I would call like havens or homecomings, a place of safety that I can kind of like take a breath. And but if I stay there too long, like I get stuck. I'm like, well, yeah, I need
I
a
actually quoted, or well, yeah, quoted you-ish. I mean, talked
yeah.
about this idea of orientation. This
Hmm.
week, our church is in a transition time, which are transitions are great, right? Like they're opportunities to relook at some things and what needs to change. And, everybody's already in change mode, so they're more
Right.
apt to accept other changes and, talking about vision and preferred picture of the future and some of these kinds of things. And what I really appreciate, there are some leadership folks going around kind of talking to department heads, like trying to get a good handle on where are you right now? This idea that like
Amen.
we have to know where we are. It's good to have an idea of where you want to go, but if you don't know where you are, it really doesn't matter where you want to go because everybody you don't know where to go
Yeah.
to get where you want to go unless you have an accurate acceptance and picture and anchor of where you are starting from. And I was like, my friend Chris King, he's kind of a genius about all this and he talked about you and it was very helpful and was a very helpful picture and the whole map thing,
Yeah.
kind of the idea at the mall, you are here.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it happens a lot at the airport too. You're like, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to find Starbucks. I
Hmm.
see where the Starbucks is, but it means nothing to me until I know where the You Are Here star is. And then it's like, oh yeah, now I know how to get where I'm going. So it's
I
important.
mean, I appreciate that. It's just so true. And when you get into change into territory that you aren't familiar with, like when you don't know where you are, it's just like, this seems like a good idea. Let's go that way. My wife and I were partying a little bit in Boston a few years back, and I was not 100% like, you know, incredibly
Locked in.
rational. Correct. Right.
Yeah.
And we didn't know our way around like we were walking up and down like these streets and stuff, and I'm like, I think this is the way.
It feels right.
And and you're like that, wait, now we're like in a different state or something.
Yeah, like where are we? Where
Right. Yeah.
why would I think that that I'd even know where to go?
Exactly. What made me think that not knowing where I am or not being able to tell the truth or having any kind of accurate estimate about my present location, what makes me think that going north is a good idea?
Especially when you realize you were going west.
That's
You thought you
exactly,
were going
that is
north.
100% what happened.
And then you stopped and you're like, hey, where's the such and such hotel? And they're like,
Yeah.
bro, not here. Like
I'm like,
not
oh,
all here.
wait. Yeah. And as I was
Feels like it should be
sobering
here.
up a little bit, I was just like, oh, I was wrong.
Like
Man,
wrong. Oh,
that didn't work out very well. Well, I appreciate you bringing that up. So, and so what we have to be able to do kind of on the 9 o'clock side of that orientation cycle is when we get stuck.
yeah.
Like we might know where we are, but then we're like, we're either bored or we don't have good direction. And many times we lack the courage to like get unstuck.
Mhm.
It is on us
Yeah.
to say, maybe I'm not going to do the thing where I'm risking my life, but I got to risk something. And
Hmm.
if everything is about relationships, then the only safe way to live when it comes to relationships is to not have them.
Right. Which is not it,
It's
which
not
is
what we
it's
want.
not safe.
Yeah. So
Not
relationships,
good.
yeah, they're risky. And so like when we get stuck, especially in relationships with people or like our past or our future, our vocation, like a relationship with anything, like we've got to be able to say, huh, where do I want to go? All right, what does a little bitty step look like? And then we
Yeah.
got to take risks. And usually that's not by ourselves because we can have people that can help us. And then it just kind of comes full circle. Like we kind of reorient, we deal with change. And like every time we do that, we learn more and hopefully have, more experience and more courage to do bigger, better things, harder things, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's this year, that's what everything is about for me, right? And so I guess the question then of the week, which is super duper locked into the idea of orientation and relationships and like moving through that process is this. What is versus what ought to be?
Hmm.
And I don't know. I am here to say that what is is always better. In fact, so much so that I have banned people from using, if not dirty words, dirty phrases in my office. And they are as follows. It should be, it
Oh,
it it ought to be.
what?
Those are the dirtiest ones.
So you don't let them use those words.
I don't know. I mean, they can use whatever words they want.
Okay.
But I'm like it's like a tag. You're like, yeah, what? What should be? Huh. So if I'm a little curious what you think about what I'm saying here. Why is what is better than what should be? Because like people ought to have goals. They ought to have hopes and
So
dreams.
I
Right?
I feel myself like bristling against your statement. But I have a pretty strong history of getting camp. I can camp out in like, but this isn't how it should be, right? And I can like live there for a long time and I think sometimes that's true. It shouldn't be this way. Like I can think about instances of talking with students and they're talking about things that their parents have said to them or whatever. And they're like, my my dad should not have said that to me. And that's
Right.
true. Like
It
in some
is.
cases it's true.
Yeah.
The parents shouldn't be like that. That is a true statement that that happened or whatever. And like I'm like, yeah. But I also acknowledge too that like you can't live there because that's not real.
Well,
Like you can't live in oughts and shoulds because that's not a real place, right?
okay. Well, to me, that feels like a rub. Like
I know.
if we were to give our energy to ought to be and should be, and but then you acknowledge that it's not real, I'm a little curious what good is it?
Maybe the only good it could possibly serve is something to work towards, right?
Huh?
Like if you acknowledge that like, man, this feels bad and it feels wrong. It feels like it's not how it should be. And you're in
Mhm.
any kind of control to move your life toward what should be versus what shouldn't be, then you can make those moves. Like by acknowledging it, maybe, I don't know, maybe when you acknowledge, but you can't, yeah, like you're saying, you have to acknowledge what is and acknowledging what ought to be or should be or feels like it should be, maybe that when you see the difference between the two, you can start making orientation moves, right? Like from where you are, it helps form where you want to go, the
Mhm.
shoulds and the oughts. But
So,
camping and should and ought isn't helpful.
so what you and I are doing right here is we're just kind of working that out in your brain because like what you provided to this conversation was just like a really normal approach. We all have ideas about the way that life ought to go,
Yeah,
and they're informed by our parents, our experiences, and a lot of them are informed by like beliefs about what is
yeah,
right and wrong and what God says or these sorts of things.
yeah,
Yeah, and so like when I'm like, what is always better than what ought to be. Like I think bristling at that, especially if you have any sense of justice, is
right.
is a help. Like that sounds super normal, but it gets the conversation going. So I have a lot to say about it. I've been working I call it the whiz, the
Mm.
WIIS, the whiz, the way it is, the whiz
I feel
versus
like we need to rebrand that just personally. I feel like Wiz is already taken.
Mhm. Yeah, I know. Versus the WIDOB, the way it ought to be. And I need something that rolls off the tongue better than the WIDOB, the way it ought to be. But people tend to remember it, so that's okay, I guess. And I just draw these two on a whiteboard. I just draw these two little stick figures, and I ask people where they're living. Like, where's your mental energy? Where's your
Yeah.
belief system? And because I'm curious, because the gap between the way it ought to be and the way it is for you is your pain.
Mm,
Like it's your helplessness, it's your anger, it's your fear, it's your pain. And usually back to orientation, whenever we're really focused on the way that it ought to be is out there.
yeah.
And there's no energy to our current location, to our accepting our situation. I spent a lot of years just kind of stuck on what was a challenging economic situation for our family. And my kids to this day now make fun of those years and make fun of me.
Oh,
Like they have a joke about the way that I look when I pick up the tab at dinner. And when I
oh,
was probably like 38 or whatever, 35,
yeah.
I'd get the tab and it would be like whatever, $60, $100, whatever it was. And and they have Drew's the best. He has this impersonation of become just looking kind of disappointed.
So
And
disappointed. So disappointed in everyone.
well, yeah, I mean, like that's the thing. Like then they're like, well, what are we supposed to do with this? Because what I'm disappointed in, this is a great example. What I'm disappointed in and what I'm putting out there passively, aggressively is the fact that I don't like the way it is compared to the way it ought to be. I'm having trouble paying my bills because of our choices, and I want to blame other people. Like we should be eating at Cece's every night, And by the way, there was a day when Cece's Pizza was literally $2.99 for the buffet.
That's why it was youth group pizza.
Yeah, it's a youth group pizza. So I would feel helpless about that, and then I would put that out on people, on my family. Excuse me. And But truly, the problem was that my focus was on the way it ought to be. If we just had more money, or if we just ate out less, or if people appreciated it more, or if I would have given more energy to doing the hard work of having a more steady income instead of working at a camp or a church.
Yeah.
And it's always about should have and could have and would have and like it's out there. It's very external. And what that energy does, say again, you're going to say something, go.
Yeah. Well, it's out there, but it's also back there. So like
Yeah.
some of those should haves, could have, would haves are they're already decisions that have already been, you can't go back there.
Yeah,
Like,
but we do.
right? Like I
We
should have picked a
do.
different job. I should have not gone
Yes,
out
come
to
on.
like that ship has sailed. And there are
Right.
some should haves that maybe are ahead of us, but most of them live in the past.
Well, I'll get to
Someone,
that.
right?
What I'm gonna propose is that A, that you're bristling at my idea is normal and good. And what I'm gonna propose is that like the heart behind that bristling is is good. I'm proposing that we change our language slightly, but there's more to say. So you brought that up, and so the timeline about woulda, coulda, shoulda, oughta is never present. It's always future or past.
Yeah.
It's based in regret or shame from the past, or it's based in fear or anxiety about the future.
Yeah.
And the part of our brain that eats that shit up is our fight, flight, freeze, our amygdala, our trauma, our chronic stress, our survival brain. And so
Yeah.
it cycles that stuff and keeps us obsessing and stuck in those areas because it wants to keep us alive. Our brain's number one job is to keep us alive. And so it's like if you can keep thinking about what you should or what should be and keep you kind of upset about it, you're going to like basically prevent risk. You're going to
Oh, right.
not.
If I can come up with all the things that could go wrong
That's
and
correct.
come up with a plan for it,
That's
that's
right.
not anxiety, my friend. That's preparation.
That's right. And
It doesn't
so
work, but
right. And our brain will keep us cycling there because of the fear of stepping into the present and admitting what is true, and then having to deal with the change in a purposeful way from getting from where we truly are to where we want to be or where we ought to be. or we should be, or what is good, like that is that's way scarier than really
Mm.
focusing on the way things ought to be. But the way things ought to be isn't real. It's just an
Yeah.
idea. It's just an idea.
But it can be an impetus for change, right?
It can be the impetus, but it's all external. And so like it's all these standards that we're reaching for about ought to be and should be have been brought from somewhere else. Now, if we say it's something that God said or that God laid down or whatever, or it's something we have like adopted or connected to, like I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing,
Right.
but it's a relationship. Like we have a relationship with the belief, so we have a part in it. What people tend to do is they focus on the way on that external thing, be it like in my example, be it like my income or
Yeah.
one of my kids doesn't appreciate the fact that we went to Chili's tonight versus Cece's. Like it's always it's about the other thing or I'm not or some sort of standard that I keep on the inside of me, but is based on an ought. So it feels internal, but in reality, it's external because it's like I'm not getting to this place. It's an ought. It's a should. I can't get there. I feel helpless and I feel stuck. It's external. And then it is, and here's the word that I want people to stick with, which is not a new word. It's deficit oriented.
Mm.
Oh, we're not there yet. I mean, have you ever been in a conversation about how things are going with your family or at
Yeah.
work or whatever? And someone, maybe it's you, maybe it's someone else, is just like, I don't know, man. Like, it's just, we can't do the A, B, C, D, E, F. And then, like, someone else says, I, I think we're kind of okay. Like, I mean, maybe that's just you. Maybe it's not as bad as we thought it was. And
Because there's a
pe-
subjective, it's mildly subjective what I think ought to be versus what someone else thinks ought to be.
yeah, 100%. Now, what is also subjective because it's our own experience. But my point in that is saying that
Yeah.
like it's like that deficit mindset, like whoa, like many times it's like it's just a way of looking at it. Oh my gosh, we're never gonna make it. Well, okay, that's one way of looking at it. And you're just focused on that gap.
Yeah.
Your brain is literally, and we do this with our parents as we get older, like crazy, because now we don't like
What do you
kind of how
mean?
it's well, like because when we are become grown up adults and we have our own problems, like it becomes real, like the things that weren't working out with us and our parents. And so we are like we really want it to be different or we really want it to change or whatever, but it can't, it won't. I mean, we could like do the work and that's fine, but this happens all the time because people have time to kind of reflect on it when they get older. Like when you're a kid, you're just kind of like trying to manage it. You might not like it or you might fight with your parents. But whenever you kind of go off and get your own family and stuff, like that's a different animal. And so what happens is that people tend to fall into two different camps. Like this is actually a great context for this conversation, right? Is like they fall into the it is what it is, but maybe if they're like a what is person, they're not a hopeless what is person. They're just like realistic, you know?
Hmm.
Like no, this is the map. Also,
Yeah.
I love you guys. I mean, like the same,
Yeah.
same is true with raising kids that like become adults. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, they think for themselves. And so on the one hand, you have the what is, which is like when you go to 12 step, you're like, my name is Chris and I'm an alcoholic. Like that is okay. We're starting there. That's what is. Um, and then there's a whole bunch of other people just like, why
Yeah.
can't we get it right? You know, why can't we get it right? I can't stand it. And so they never talk about it or whatever.
What's the hold up?
Yeah. And so this is my point
Yeah.
when I say that what is always better than what ought to be, is that what is true and what ought to be is actually not true. And what if we changed our language slightly? Well, let me ask you, and this none of this is
Hmm.
prepared. So do I need to say that to our listeners? that none of this is
I think they know now.
okay. If you were going to adjust your language, so like you're seeing kind of this what ought to be is very external. So if we were going to take responsibility for ourselves in relationships and try to change the language instead of what ought to be to change it to what is, if all we did was what is and it was all just present, then that it kind of wipes out kind of what's next, right? Like the whole external piece. Like if the map was just the blue dot,
Mhm.
here's what is. I am present. Okay, that's good. Like you're okay, you're honest. But then like if that was the only thing on the map, then you really don't have anywhere to go,
Right.
right? But I'm taking the off the table. Here's where we ought to go. I'm saying no, well, there's no ought because someone else decided that for you. So if we were going to own it instead of being like
Right.
the way it ought to be, according to whoever, even if it's a good thing,
Yeah.
morality, right? If we were going to own it and we took it off the table that like, oh, well, ought to be is up there. Like we're going north because that's where we ought to be. And I took that off the table. I'm like, okay, now we got to reconstruct the map. How could you say it differently if you were going to own it? If it was up to you where to go?
Maybe you say something like, here's where I am,
Mhm.
and I'm working I'm working towards going over here. There's no value attached to it. It's just an accurate, right? It's just accurate. Like, and I'm working on going in this direction with
Yeah.
no like value words of ought or should, or no shame words, no fear words, no anxiety words, just active, accurate. This is where I am, and this is where I'm working towards going.
Okay. You're
Is that
so
what you're
right
talking
there.
about?
Right. But if you said I'm working towards going to X, why go to X if it's not where you ought to be?
This is where
Because
I want to be.
winner, winner, AQ, chicken dinner.
Ugh, thank you,
I
chicken
know it's
dinner.
sad, right? Yeah. Winner, winner,
Okay,
AQ, chicken dinner. Because it's where I want to go.
where I want to go. But can I ask a question?
Please.
So saying things like where we are is always better than where we ought to be feels mostly true until you talk about things like the civil rights movement, Jim
Yeah.
Crow,
Right.
the way it
Right.
was that's not better.
No.
Like, and there was a bunch of people that said the way it is not better than the way it ought to be. And so we're going to work to be something else. And it was
Mhm.
an impetus for change and working towards the ought. And I mean, there's still obviously all this work to do, but in some ways, I've got to believe it's better than it was. And
Yeah.
that I think, and I don't know, maybe it's semantics, but I think there were enough people that came together and said the way it is not, this is not good.
Mhm.
The way it is not how it ought to be and not how we want it to want. And so we are going to work together towards this other thing we want. And we also believe it's a better thing. We think it's the way it ought to be.
But notice what I agree with all that, right? And if I didn't, I'd be not a good guy. So there's that. But notice that, I mean, wouldn't it be true that any of the people that you're describing in this movement um, had some sort of accurate assessment of their current condition?
Yes, agreed.
And a with eyes on that, our situation is not acceptable. This is the reality of where we live or what I'm going to. And I'm unwilling for that to continue. And I have this standard that I believe in, that we feel like is worth moving towards. And the ought of the world, of the way the world is, like all of us will disagree.
Yeah.
And the ought, it's just not as real as what is. Like right now, racism is rampant.
Yeah.
Well, believing the data, if we don't believe the data, then we're not like if we don't believe that it's real, if we don't believe that our leadership maybe isn't going to help us with some of those things, like what is it that people are doing, and what is it around that's happening around me that is true? What is true right now? What is
You're saying what being having accurate lenses on where you are, that is a better way to be, not saying that what is what's good.
No, it's not. I'm not. This is not a moral thing,
Right.
and that
Okay.
maybe that needs to be clarified.
Yeah. What is good about it only is that
It
you
might be
have
100.
accurate,
It
that
might
you're
be one.
accurately
Yes, it might.
identifying where you
That's
are.
correct. It might be
Yeah.
100% bad,
Terrible. Yeah.
and we got to understand this also is that this conversation about what is versus what ought to be feels super subjective, and in reality, it is. And but the only way that it has any moral teeth is whenever we attach ourselves to an idea that says that there's value for others and for self.
Yeah.
Like there's an internal drive. So like dignity drives the civil rights movement, right?
Yeah.
But also, and this is in the book too, there's toxic orientation. So like the members of, various systems then and now, like the Ku Klux Klan, or maybe just kind of like undercover racist systems that are part of the government or whatever, like especially back then, like when there was like state-sponsored segregation, et cetera, they were oriented too.
Yeah.
They're like, we're good.
Yeah.
And they had a belief about the way things were
And the way things
and
ought to
and
be.
are and ought to be like and they're honestly like kind of their effectiveness and being like in like winning whatever it means. Like like they probably are assessing the way things are. And they'll just do harm to the world unless relationships, generally, people can come together and teach each other and show each other through experience that like valuing others and value self is actually the way to be, like, which is the Jesus thing.
Yeah.
Like this is how I've made you, and you have great value. Everybody has value. And so when people come to me, 3 out of 4 are feel helpless because things ought to be different.
Uh,
And so we have to start and say, well, how are things? And then there's, two hands, right? Well, on the one hand, this is terrible. Okay, let's tell the truth about it. On the other hand, this stuff's kind of good. Let's hang on to those things. And then
yeah.
where do you want to go? Where do you,
You want to go.
because it's
Yeah.
so important to you. And notice like excuse me, like notice who is the subject of that sentence, and like I will go here. When I said, well, what do you do with that? You said, well, this is where I'm headed. Oh, instead of like where I should be.
Right.
Like where does responsibility lie in relationships? Well, like always with us.
Mm.
You're
Yeah.
either gonna say no to it with a boundary, or you're going to say yes at some level. But it just can't be focused on a non-entity.
Yeah.
I am so I am so disappointed that our marriage isn't X. Like, oh, well, I guess that's a legit disappointment, but if that's all we ever thought about,
Yeah.
nothing would happen.
I wish we this more. I wish we that more. I wish we, well,
Yeah.
what are you
Well,
going to do about
yeah,
it?
what are we doing? What is happening right now? And what is real?
And you're right. I mean, it can for the most, I mean, I'm trying to think of an example of where that would breed positivity and it doesn't. It just highlights the discrepancy. And if all you do
Big
is
gap.
live, yeah, the gap, all it does is highlight the gap. And if all you do is live in disappointment about the gap, you're stuck, right? You're stuck in disappointment. And it,
Resentment, anger,
yeah, all those things like
helplessness.
fester and grow and breed and root, and then you're just Yeah. And the only way, I think you're right. I think the first step towards getting unstuck from that place is pause. Where are you right now? Right now. We'll talk about how you feel about right now in a minute, but like, where are you? What is the truth about where you are?
Yeah. What do you
You're
recognize
allowed to
about?
have feelings about it.
Uh-huh.
You can attach positive or negative
Or
feelings to
negative.
those.
That's
Yeah,
right.
totally. But you still have to assess, accurate assess. This is where I am. And
Yeah.
is it possible though that you think you're somewhere you're not? Can you
Yeah.
be
That's what I just, yeah. Yeah. I just
be
said
wrong
that.
about
Yeah.
your not?
Yeah. Absolutely. And so that's why we can't go through life in a solo fashion. Also, that's why therapy is great or having mentors are great because you're like, I really thought this about myself. And I wonder now that I'm looking back on it, maybe I was wrong. And people can be like, I mean, yeah, people get it wrong all the time. So what are we going to do now?
What are we gonna do now?
Yeah, I have a great story about that. When I was just finishing grad school, I had to do practicum work, and I had two practicum sites for counseling. One was with a private practice woman. Her name's Anna. Her name was Anna Smith. No, that's my therapist. Anna Jones. Anna Jones, who's since retired, and she had a private practice. And I'm like, hey, can I be the inexperienced dude that people pay $20 to see at her office? They're like, if you want to see Anna, it's $100. If you want to see this Yahoo, it's 20.
Yeah.
And people are like, most people were like, no, thank you. But many people are like, I don't have $400 a month. 80 sounds workable. Let's see what he's got. And that's how that goes.
Yeah.
So one of the things we learned at JBU, and a lot of therapists do this, and I think it's really valid, is this idea of called solution focused or solution based therapy. And if you go hardcore into solution, it's this. They don't even like this is what they teach you. They don't even give attention to the past like at all, which I don't even know how I just can't go there because
Yeah.
a lot of our work that we've seen be so successful over the years has been like really getting in touch with the various parts of you and the trauma that you've experienced and chronic stressors, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, they taught us this and they're like, I think it was a response to managed care where like a lot of people were only getting insured for like 6 sessions, right? So it's like, you know what, we need to
Oh,
make
right.
make
They're
something
like, we got to
happen.
get them somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. We're not going to do like Freudian psychotherapy and sit with someone for 3 years. Like we need to go. So anyway, one of the, and this is really great. It's a great hack. It's like one of the tenets of like solution focused is like just grab a hold of strengths. Okay. And so I remember this couple came in to do couples therapy with me, of which I did not know how to do. I'm just saying that's how,
Full
and
disclosure.
then they came in and they're like, I'm like, well, tell me a little bit about what's going on. They're like, well, you're kind of like our last hope. Like we're this close to getting a divorce, and they gave me their complaints. I don't remember what those were. And I'm like, I'm like 27.
Yeah.
These people are like 40. And I'm like, I'm just out of my depth. And I thought all I could do at that moment was hang on to what I had been taught and try that, which is not a bad strategy. And I said, well, I mean, well, what's real about, like, what is still real about your relationship? Like, have we made a list about what is working at all? And maybe why you got together in the first place? Like, what?
What was
Because like, I'm,
working?
I'm
Yeah.
just curious if you like laid all that stuff out, that maybe it might raise our awareness to maybe the gap of the way our marriage ought to be. Maybe is it quite as big as our brains have like led it to believe because we're just so stressed out and we feel so defensive. So go home and make a big fat list of why you're together and what actually does work. But it needs to be like the most littlest of things.
Yeah.
Like like it could be really little. Like, well, like he still takes the trash out. Like,
Yeah.
cool. Like nothing is off limits as far as to what works. Because I don't think that, I know you're ready for a divorce, but I just don't think that 100% of your interaction does not work.
Right.
So they made a big list. They came back a week later and they're like, I think we're good.
And you were like, I think I am so good at this.
Yeah, like now I'm pro.
Yeah.
Now I'm like,
Now
God,
you've saved 100% of the marriages you've worked with.
that's right. And they, I think I saw them a couple more times, and they're like, no, really, like this is the juice, and they just did that. That's like literally what happened. And I'm like, huh, there's something to this, you know? So
Yeah.
so I think that, and also our trauma brain, like our fixing survival brain, like it doesn't want to focus on like what's happening right now that is bad because it's dangerous. It doesn't want to focus on what's happening right now that is good because it's not a risk. So
Yeah.
we have to slow down and get present, like literally call time out and be like, what is, and everything can change from there. It's it's just, maybe I should say this, maybe that what ought to be is not an invalid idea on the whole. There are things that are right, and it would be better if they were that way. But most people I see, that's like the only thing they think about.
Right.
And so they are so hurt and helpless and gapped up between their inability to change it that nothing happens. And instead, if they would be like, well, where are we and where am I and what is real? What is the good news? What's the bad news? Okay. All right. I've established my blue dot on the map. Well, where do I want to go? Where do we want to go? And why? Where do we ultimately want to go? I want to have a better marriage, like where we talk to our kids. Awesome. Well, what would be things that we do along that path? And then you just got to start doing stuff.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen when you're just constantly disappointed by the fact that your kids don't talk to you
Right.
or whatever, you know?
Well, then I think a lot of people's shoulds and out there things like, well, if their shoulds and shouldas and oughtas
Yeah,
aren't even picked by them.
that's correct.
They're old voices or something that like
Yeah.
someone that was important to them said, you really you really oughta, if you
Mhm.
were a good wife, you'd fill in the blank. If you were a good woman, you'd fill in the blank. If you were a
Yeah.
good, whatever. And and those are like double unhelpful because they aren't even yours.
I know they're not yours. And then
They're
they create
somebody
shame,
else's.
and shame just fills that gap of helplessness. And if we're going to take responsibility for our lives or feel strong in any way, and all my Christian buddies out there, this is not an anti-Christian message. It's like owning it,
Yes.
owning it in our part of the relationship, be it with people, with God, with our beliefs, like is a matter of leaning into what is in the hard things and in the things to be thankful
Yeah.
with, healing and growth.
Someone said one
And
time about they were like, watch it, you just about to should all over yourself. And I was like, oh yeah, like I love that. Like us folks that lean in naturally to shame, we can just wear it like a blanket.
exactly.
Like, like, oh, I just should all over myself just now. Like, and again, it doesn't mean you shouldn't have goals and shouldn't
Correct.
have beliefs about the way things ought to be or the life that you want,
Yeah,
but you'll just physically never get
you
there
will get there. And
if
your
that's what
brain
you
will your
put.
brain right, and your brain will assist in the holding back of that.
If you live in the way it ought to be moving forward or the way you wish it had been back here, neither of which are helpful because they're not what
No,
they are.
no, we've got to do is the way it is. We've got to do now. It's always the starting point.
Are we
It is,
allowed to play real music, like with words and stuff on this podcast
I don't
or?
know. It might get taken down. I'm not sure, but we can see.
Oh. Well, the only song I can think of this whole time is that Tupac, That's Just the Way It Is, which you realize is if Bruce Hornsby, either of those will work, but Tupac sampled it. That's just the way it is. Things will never be the same. Yeah, you know
Mhm.
that song.
Yeah, he was awesome. Fun fact this week, this will make your husband mad because I don't even think we talked about it. Me and Drew went and saw Robert Plant at the Tulsa Theater. He was at the Tulsa Theater this week.
Oh man, yeah, that will make him mad.
He'd really be mad at me because
He's
he
still
asked me to
mourning that I think it is this the week that Fish is at the Sphere
maybe.
or something? He's
Yeah,
sad about that.
yeah, me and him were trying to get tickets and we couldn't get
He's
the
mourning
lottery.
the way it ought to have gone.
Exactly, right? Okay.
He's gonna
Well,
move
hey,
on.
we are running this.
Yep.
The time is out. I basically preached at all of you for an hour, so
That
Alison,
was
I hope that
good.
was tolerable. But
Good.
thank you.
But say the thing because this is, I think, more than ever, your little mantra is very
Yeah,
helpful.
right. We are no more important than anyone else in the world. We are also as important as everyone else in the world. So, yeah, so look out for each other and remember you get a vote too. Look out for yourself. And we're going to come back and see you again in 1 week because we do it every week. Remember to like it, subscribe it, share it with your friends. Remember the people who do the good work at GPS Therapies, taking a risk every day to try to help people heal and grow their mental, relational health. Just appreciate you guys so much. Allison, you're awesome here.
Okay, thanks. And so, Bruce, if you're listening, Bruce Hornsby, we love you. Tupac, we miss Hey Lauren and my parents, which they're probably listening through the door because I'm in.
We'll see all of you guys later. Thank you.
See ya.